I am an old storyteller, with more years behind me than I care to admit. I have seen and heard things that would make your hair stand on end. But nothing compares to what I experienced at the Stanley Hotel. That place changed my life forever. It all began on a cold and foggy autumn day when I decided to spend some time in the Colorado mountains to write my next book. The Stanley Hotel, majestic and imposing, seemed like the perfect retreat for a writer seeking inspiration. Little did I know that I would find much more than that within its century-old walls. I arrived on a gray afternoon, the dry leaves crunching under my feet as I climbed the entrance steps. The lobby was grand, with crystal chandeliers softly tinkling as if welcoming me. The scent of old wood and beeswax hung in the air, mixed with an aroma I couldn't identify at the time. Something old and forgotten. The receptionist, a thin man with deep-set eyes, handed me the key to room 217 with a strange smile. "Enjoy your stay, sir," he said, his voice rasping like dry leaves in the wind. "And don't be frightened by the noises at night. This hotel has stories to tell." I ignored the shiver that ran down my spine. After all, I was a horror writer. Ghost stories didn't scare me, or so I thought. The first few nights were peaceful, except for the occasional creak of the floor or the whisper of the wind against the windows. I wrote for hours on end, inspired by the atmosphere of the place. But then, things began to change. First, it was small details, objects out of place. My glasses on the nightstand when I was sure I had left them on my notebook. The pen I used for notes would disappear and reappear in improbable places, like inside the lampshade or precariously balanced on the edge of the bathtub. I tried to rationalize it, convincing myself it was just distraction. But then things got stranger. One night, I woke up with the sensation of being watched. The darkness of the room seemed denser, almost tangible. And there, in the farthest corner, I saw a figure, a shadow darker than the surrounding blackness, vaguely shaped like a person. I blinked hard, and when I opened my eyes again, it was gone. The nightmares began shortly after. Vivid, terrifying dreams where I ran through endless corridors, pursued by something I couldn't see but felt its malevolent presence just behind me. I woke up in a cold sweat, the sheets twisted around my feet as if I had actually run all night. During the day, I tried to focus on writing, but the words seemed to slip away from me. Instead, I found myself doodling strange drawings in the margins of my notebook, spirals, eyes, and symbols I didn't recognize. When I realized what I was doing, I tore out the pages and threw them away. But the next morning, they were back on my desk, intact. That's when I started noticing the other guests, or rather, the lack of them. The hotel seemed eerily empty for the season. The few people I did see in the hallways or the restaurant had a distant, almost glazed look. I tried to talk to a lady in the elevator, but she just stared at me with vacant eyes before hurriedly exiting at her floor. The receptionist, when questioned about the low occupancy, just shrugged. "People come and go," he said, his eyes never meeting mine. "Sometimes they just disappear." The atmosphere of the hotel grew more oppressive by the day. The walls seemed closer, the corridors longer and more twisted. The smell of mold and decay intensified, even though the place was impeccably clean. At night, I heard whispers and muffled laughter coming from rooms I knew were empty. A week after my arrival, I woke up in the middle of the night with a scream caught in my throat. I had dreamt of a woman in a white dress, her face a mask of pain and fury. She pointed to the bathtub, her lips moving without sound. Trembling, I turned on the bedside lamp and forced myself to get up. The bathroom door was ajar, a sliver of bluish light escaping through the crack. I hadn't left any light on. With my heart pounding in my chest, I pushed the door open. The bathtub was filled to the brim with dark, oily water. Floating on the surface, my torn-up drafts formed a macabre mosaic. The words seemed to move, rearranging themselves into sentences that chilled me to the bone. "Welcome to your new home. You will never leave." I backed away in horror, bumping into the sink. The mirror above it was fogged up, as if someone had just taken a hot bath. Slowly, letters began to form on the misty surface. Room 217. The secret is here. At that moment, something snapped inside me. Long-buried memories surged to the surface like a tsunami. I had been there before, many years ago when I was just a young writer looking for inspiration. Room 217. Something terrible had happened in that room. Fragmented images flooded my mind. A woman in the bathtub, water red with blood, screams muffled by the noise of the storm outside. And I was there, not as a witness, but as, no, couldn't be. I would have remembered, or would I? The following days passed in a blur of terror and confusion. I could no longer distinguish between reality and nightmare. The walls of the room seemed to pulse with a life of their own, whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. My reflection in the mirror changed when I wasn't looking directly at it, sometimes showing a younger face, other times a face twisted by malice. I tried to leave, of course, but every time I reached the lobby, something pulled me back. A soft voice calling my name, the promise of revealing the truth about my past. And so I returned, climbing the endless stairs back to room 217. It was on a stormy night, because it is always on a stormy night that things reach their peak, that everything culminated. Lightning flashed through the room in stroboscopic bursts, revealing shadows that moved in the corners. The wind howled like tortured souls, and I knew it was time to face whatever was waiting for me. With trembling steps, I entered the bathroom. The bathtub was filled again, but this time it wasn't water. It was a thick, dark liquid, bubbling as if alive. And maybe it was. A figure slowly emerged from the liquid. The woman from my dream, her white dress now stained with red and black. Her eyes were pits of darkness, fixed on me with an intensity that paralyzed me. "You have returned," she said, her voice a distant echo. "We can finally finish what we started." Memories exploded in my mind. I was young, ambitious, desperate for a story that would make me famous. And there, in room 217, I found my muse, a young woman with sad eyes and a story to tell. We spent days together, she unraveling a web of horror and mystery that I eagerly turned into words. But it wasn't fiction. It was her life, her torment. And when I realized the truth, it was too late. She begged me to help her escape the hotel from the entities that held her captive. I promised. But at the crucial moment, my desire for fame outweighed everything else. I betrayed her, abandoning her to her terrible fate. And with her sacrifice, I gained the story that made me a renowned author. "You owe me," the figure in the bathtub hissed, extending a pale, wrinkled hand towards me. "It's time to pay your debt." I knew what I had to do. The ritual she demanded was simple, my life for hers, a voluntary sacrifice to free her and atone for my sins. With heavy steps, I entered the bathtub. The liquid was cold, sucking the warmth from my body. As I sank, I heard her voice one last time. "Welcome to your new home. You will never leave." And so, dear reader, my story ends. Or perhaps it is just the beginning. For here I am, telling this tale once again. A ghost among ghosts, forever trapped in the Stanley Hotel. So, the next time you pass through here and hear the creak of a pen writing in the middle of the night, remember, some stories come with a price, and some debts are never truly paid. The halls of the Stanley Hotel hold many secrets, and now I am one of them. Perhaps one day you will join us too. After all, there's always room for one more horror story within these ancient walls. But be careful what you wish for, because here at the Stanley Hotel, wishes have a habit of becoming nightmares from which you never wake.